Welcome back, Boss Bitches, to the Boss Bitch Rising podcast. I am so excited to welcome Wasim The Dream Hajjiri onto our podcast today. The reason why I'm introducing him this way is because he is a fighter and I can't wait to watch him fight, but that'll be another topic for another time. Wasim, I'm so excited to have you on today's podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Can you introduce us and a little about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And let's get ready to rumble introduction. I love it. Yes, my name is Wasim, and I'm originally from Jordan. I moved out to the US around 8 years ago, and that's when my journey began.
Your journey towards what? Like, what is your purpose? I know that you have a book, you have a lot of amazing things that you're working on. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to invite you onto the Boss Bitch Rising podcast, just to have a conversation. I believe you to be a very influential person.
Thank you.
Being that we're in the topic right now of conversations with influential people, I just wanted to introduce my audience to you. Wasim is actually a really recent connection of mine. We met through my good friend Jeanne, and she was recently on the podcast. And, Wasim and I just got connected, and we've had some really, really powerful, valuable conversations since our introduction, which was only maybe a month or two ago. And he's an author, he's a coach, and I believe you're also a Forbes certified coach too, as well, right?
Yeah, so my background is engineering, and my main business is career coaching. I'm part of the Forbes Career Coaches Council. I publish articles with them covering personal development, career development, and different topics. I just came out with my second book, and the book is called Fulfilled, ? How to land a job that aligns with your purpose. Especially now, with the great resignation, 4.5 million people quit their jobs in January alone. It's crazy what's happening. Everyone needs the help and guidance in their careers to either shift into something better or move within the company or maybe start a business, because now, so many opportunities are on the rise in the online world, and all of these young kids, like starting businesses and NFTs and the metaverse, and it's like a whole thing. It's amazing.
It really is honestly a whole new world. What is that? Is that from Aladdin, that song? Or is that The Little Mermaid? One of those Disney movies. It doesn't matter. But a whole new world just popped into my head. And we really are living in such a different time now. Like with what you said, like the metaverse and NFTs. I mean, 5 years ago, we had no idea what those things really were. A very, very small community of people did. And now it's just such a trending topic. And it seems like there's so many brand new opportunities that we would have never even considered 5 years ago. And Wasim is really, I think, one of the people that are on kind of like the cutting edge of different industries. And our first meeting, he added so much value to my life. He took a look over just kind of like my online presence and how I was showing up on LinkedIn, and helped to kind of guide me a little bit more to tailor my approach and my strategy. And I thought that, like, wow, if he could do this for me in just 1 hour and how valuable our hour was together, I can only imagine how many lives he's out there affecting. And that was our first meeting.
Thank you so much for the kind words. And I feel the exact same way. The second we connected, through Instagram, I was watching your posts. You have such a strong, beautiful energy. You care so much, because it shows. It's from the heart. The content you're putting out there, all of these amazing people that you're helping. So I feel the same way. As much as you feel I added value to you, you did the same to me, because, we need each other in the end. We all have to help each other, and we feed off the energies, and we're all on the same mission, which is to help people and to make the world a better place. Amen. Through what we do.
Yes. I actually recently shared on a recent podcast episode that my uncle, he kind of raised me. He's like a mentor in a sense. He always said, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I never really was a great student. I wasn't very smart per se, book smart, but I always was savvy and I could figure things out as long as I just applied myself. And I know Wasim knows that about me because he's given me some homework and I was just like right there in the trenches doing it right away.
On fire. You were on fire with the homework. It was amazing.
But it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's where bringing the connections of people together and sharing value within smaller circles. So then you can figure out how to empower each other and kind of like blow each other up in a sense to empower larger communities of people. And I know Wasim is one of these individuals that is highly influential and is very purpose-filled and going out into these different communities and making a huge difference. And I'm really just kind of like curious about your journey. You said your journey began 8 years ago. Can you kind of just like walk us through what your life looked like before you stepped into your purpose and how your life has changed since then?
Well, first of all, thank you for all the kind words. I appreciate you. And so my story is a little bit crazy, and that's why I wrote the first book. My first book was about my journey of moving from a different universe, I would say, not a different country, you know, from Jordan, which is right next to Turkey on the map. And 2013 is when my whole life changed. So I did engineering for my undergrad, and that's the year that I graduated. I was on a short 2-week vacation in New York City. Right after graduation, I went there to celebrate. It was fun. It was a good time. The last few days, right before I was about to go back home, my dad gives me a call and he gives me, you know, the father-son speech of, what do you want to do in your life? Okay, so now you're an engineer. So what's your plan? And I'm like, I have no idea, nothing. All I knew was, okay, I'll get a job and that's it, you know, like find some random job. And he ended the first call with, I don't want you to come back home. I want you to stay in the US and figure it out. If you come back home, you're going to get comfortable. You're going to, you know, because everything is common here and the opportunities are not the best. You know, it's okay, but it's not like the US. And I'm fortunate enough to have my citizenship because of my parents worked very hard since a long time ago. And that's how I moved out here, literally. So from New York, I canceled my trip back home. And I took a one-way ticket to San Diego. Wow. And I landed here, and that's how I started. No plans whatsoever. I know it sounds crazy. One of my half brothers, he helped me out here at the beginning. I stayed with him. And my father's goal was to push me just to figure it out, to stumble, to fall, to fail. That was his main intention. And that's where it all began. That's how it started, which is crazy.
Wow, I actually really do love that because I feel a lot of parents want us to live in such like a cocoon, a little cushy cocoon, and try to set us up so we don't fail. And they're doing everything throughout our entire life to prevent us from failing. But the best lessons that I've ever learned in life were from my biggest fuck ups. And I know that to be true for so many people that I work with as well, is we kind of have to mess up. We have to stumble. We have to be uncertain of what is next to come and figure it all out along the way, kind of fly by the seat of your pants, if you will. And that really teaches you more hard life lessons, but I feel like also puts you directly into where your purpose is instead of feeling comfortable and just having things laid out for you. And there comes the book, right? Like fulfilled, ? Are you really fulfilled if you're just living kind of a mediocre life where things were just kind of like one thing after another happening that you knew and expected were to come, where life is an adventure? If we just kind of like let things happen as they will, we might actually find something that is more fulfilling for us, more in line with our purpose, more meaningful in the impact of the collective as a whole.
Exactly. And just like you said, and it's good that when I started my journey, like my first goal at that time was to land my dream job. And my dream job was Qualcomm, you know, one of the biggest semiconductor manufacturers in the world. Every iPhone that was ever made has a Qualcomm chip. That's how big that company was. So for me, It's like, okay, engineer, it's going to open up a lot of doors. And just like you said, I was also very naive, which is great, because you're young. I was 23, on fire, lots of energy. And I went full force, didn't even, realize what type of failures I was going to go through, how many punches to the face I was going to get. And it was like a roller coaster ride, just like you said.
Then after coming out to San Diego, what did life look like for you, kind of settling into this new city that I'm assuming you've never even been to before?
So I visited when I was a kid. I used to come just like lightly for vacations, going, to Disneyland, going to to SeaWorld and these different things. But when you move here, it's a completely different story, especially because initially I had no plans whatsoever, no friends, zero connections. It was a brand new start. So initially it was very, very challenging. It's a different culture, everything is so different here. So taking the time to adapt to a new culture, making new friends, the first year was extremely challenging. I was homesick. I felt like quitting so many times. I would call my dad. I'm like, screw this. I'm coming back home. This is not even worth it. But he kept me, fortunately, he kept me going. He's like, no, just hang in there. Him and my mom, both of them. And my mom would come out here and, stay here for a while and go back. She would go back and forth to support. And my dad would, every day I would talk to him. So that's the first year, was figuring it out and all of that. And then 6 to 8 months later, somehow I got into Qualcomm. How it happened, it's a crazy, crazy story. I can go into detail, but that's why, the first book, I explained that journey. The things that I had to do to get that job, like all of the failures, all of the no's, all of the rejection. And they don't teach us these things, when you grow up or whatever in school and college. No one teaches you like, hey, you're going to get punched in the face maybe 100 times until you succeed.
Yep.
And, obviously, you have such a powerful story too, that, you are so open about your past, about, the things that happened to you, the mistakes that you did. But, you learned and grew so much from that you created a business, because you've been there, done that, you understand what it's like to be, and, on those moments where everything is dark, where you lose hope, where everything is not working, and you push through it. And that's why you're standing today and you're sharing, your story and your journey, and you're impacting all of these people. So, which is very, very inspiring.
Thank you so much. And I feel wholeheartedly that's part of the reason why you and I have gravitated towards each other. The people that we've met through, I brought Brett and Jan on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. There's just like a power surge around this group of people. And Wasim stood out to me. I actually noticed him first from the book Fulfilled. And that kind of like intrigued me. I was like, oh, what is this about? I looked into him a little bit more, and just like his energy, his vibrance, and what he brought to the table. I was like, this is like a high caliber person. And I would love to, at least get to know this individual and see how I could add value to this person's life. And I feel like he's added so much value to my life in such a short period of time, but it's part of the struggles, I feel like, that motivate you to want to continuously just be that, giving energy in some sense of like uplifting somebody or speaking power into somebody or showing them that like, hey, when you don't give up, this is what you can do. And the book Fulfilled, can you just talk about what inspired you to start writing that book? And because that's what gravitated me towards you initially. And I unfortunately don't have it yet, because we're signing each other's books right now. And so Wasim still has my copy of his book so he can sign it. I have his copy of my book so I can sign it, and we're going to give it back to each other. But yeah, I can't wait to dive in. I just want to know more about the book though, and your inspiration to actually writing it.
Well, thank you again for all the kind words. And then I also love your book, that the title itself alone, The Power of One Positive Thought. It's part of my daily habits. You have so many different affirmations and words and phrases that really speak to me, and I absolutely love that. And, in your book, you also talk about how in the darkest times, one idea started to shift your life. One positive idea, one sentence, one phrase that you read, and then boom, everything, the whole game changed for you. So going back to, my book, I had a similar idea. So I started my career coaching business back in 2016. And my initial idea was, just like I was telling you, when I came out to the US, I was a fresh engineering graduate, and I really struggled to get that job. But I'm glad that I was, crazy enough to do so many different things on how I ended up landing that job. So I learned a lot. One day I woke up, I'm like, this is like a challenge for everyone, like landing a job, and it's a struggle. People don't know what to do, how to prepare for interviews, how to connect with companies, how to write resumes. And that's where the idea came about, from my own frustration. And at that time, 2016, I was doing the master's program, the MBA program at UCSD, and I got to work. I started to go around every single person that I get my hands to. Hey, I have this business idea. I don't know anything about business because I come from a technical background. And I started to talk to people, get the mentorship, and to join different programs and all of that. And then I found such a big opportunity in the market. 7 out of 10 people hate their jobs as we speak. 7 out of 10. And then 80% of graduating students do not have a job lined up upon graduation. I was like, whoa, this is huge. And I would love to make an impact. And everything that I learned from my personal journey and the last 5-6 years in business, to put it in this book. How can I help, the world, thousands of people, whoever this book reaches, land a job, and that's something that brings them joy, something that brings them fulfillment, and also get paid what you feel that you truly deserve. That's how the book came about.
That's amazing. That just made me resonate on how many jobs that I've had in my life that I absolutely hated. And also part of the reason why I'm an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship, right, isn't easy. There's definitely challenges, different obstacles. And in my opinion, being an entrepreneur is way harder than actually working for somebody else. Just
1,000%.
You've got to figure it out, and you're all on your own. And sometimes you're like, what am I actually doing?
I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it to anyone.
Man,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've definitely got to have some thick skin if you're going to be an entrepreneur. But finding something that actually truly fulfills you and that has meaning and purpose is worth all of the struggles and the pain and the trial of being an entrepreneur. And maybe that doesn't mean be an entrepreneur. Maybe that does go mean work for somebody else, right? But what suggestion would you give somebody in truly finding something that would fulfill them? Maybe they're lost. Maybe they don't know what that is just yet.
That's a great question. So in the book, I break down what is fulfillment. It comes down to 3 things. First of all, culture. Company culture. Number 2, the type of work that you're doing. And number 3, the salary. So before doing anything, I recommend this for everyone listening. First of all, figure out, what do you like to do? What do you actually like to do in terms of a job? Like, let's say, hypothetically, you have your degree. You have a degree right now. You're a fresh graduate. Initially, you want to start doing something that you like. I'm not saying okay, start a business, but let's say you want to get into a job. First of all, what are your values? What do you value? The company that you want to work for, the mission has to be aligned for what you're doing. As an example, let's go back to Qualcomm. Qualcomm is changing the world through technology of these phones. If, let's say, you love technology and it's aligned, that would be a company for you. So figuring out, what are your values? What do you like to do? That's number 1. And the second part is, okay, salary wise, what is a salary that, you want to start with? When it comes to a corporate job, you do have to be realistic, but you can do your homework and see what are the types of companies that can have the salary that you want? And then finally, okay, so you found the culture, you found the salary. Now, how do you get to that actual company? In the book, I break it down to 3 different stages: branding, networking, and interview prep. So the first step is branding yourself specifically for that company. So the resume and your LinkedIn profile have to be aligned and speak, the language of what that company is looking for, which is the job description. So in the book, I break down exactly how to write the resume, how to write the LinkedIn profile so that you're attractive to that specific company. Number 2, okay, so now you have the resume, you have the LinkedIn. How do you get connected to the hiring manager so that they bring you in for an interview? LinkedIn is the name of the game. You can find recruiters, hiring managers for all of these different companies right there. Connect with them and you can get rolling. Finally, all right, so you have an interview, prepare how to do your homework. The mental aspect is bigger than anything. Mentally, getting in the zone, getting your confidence, and then you doing your homework, preparing for all of the different questions.
How do you get in the zone?
So it starts with the daily habits. The second that you wake up, what do? Most people grab the phone, emails, social media. That's the biggest mistake. The thing that I recommend is blocking out the first 30 minutes of the day to do a routine for yourself, to feed your mind something positive, to do something physical. So what I do is very, very simple. You can meditate 5 minutes, do some breathing and gratitude, grab that journal, plan your day, write your thoughts down, and then do some physical exercise. Something to get the blood pumping, even if it's a 5-10 minute walk, some push-ups, sit-ups, squats, something so small, but just do 10 minutes of that, and then you start your day. And why do you have to do this? Oh my God, my mom who's 66 has a daily routine. I tell her to go for a walk, listen to something positive, because first of all, if you look at the world right now, so much is happening, wars, COVID, you name it. It's very negative. And as as ourselves, we have so much going on in our lives. On average, you get 60,000 thoughts per day. That is a lot. Yeah. So if you let your mind wander, it's going to feed off the news, the negative things that are going on, the stress, the drama, all of that. So to override all of these things, that's why you need the first 30 minutes of the day to get your mind in the zone. That's the biggest thing. And I know you have your own routine. So what does your own routine look like?
It looks very similar to yours, actually. I keep my morning routine. I actually just moved it by my bed. I had it away from my bed, but I started noticing that sometimes I would just be like, I'll do it later. So now it's literally the first thing I do in the morning. My alarm goes off, hit it off. I do a daily devotional in the morning. So I read a Bible passage. I read a passage from my book, Power of One Positive Thought. And then I have a couple other things that I can pick and choose from if it feels aligned that day. But I always do the daily devotional, my book, and then I go right into journaling. Journaling process is different every single day. Some days I'm just writing gratitude. Some days I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stressed about this thing. I need to get it out of my head. Some days I'm planning my day, very different every day. But then I go into a 15-minute meditation and visualization, which is very, very, very important, especially when you're calling in those big goals that you have, things that you've never accomplished before, things that stress you the fuck out. You need to visualize yourself achieving and the process of getting there. And just like you said, our subconscious mind thinks 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. Most of those thoughts are the same as the day before. In fact, about 70 to 90% are the same as the day before. And the average person isn't really thinking very positive thoughts, much less visualizing their desired outcomes, visualizing their self succeed. So the way our subconscious mind works is if we're actually visualizing ourselves doing something, our mind can't tell the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So the more times we start to do this, we're actually tricking our brain to think that we've actually done these things. So this is part of my daily routine when I'm doing my meditation, is I do a visualization practice kind of in tandem. And then I finish with some gratitudes. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter, but the whole process takes about 30 minutes. And it's, in my opinion, pretty quick, pretty simple. And then once I'm done with that, because I'm usually in a pretty relaxed state, I'll get up and do some breath work. And most people think they need coffee or some type of caffeine and energy drink in the morning to get their day started, when in reality, they just need to wake up their body and their nervous system. And that's where the breath work and, like you said, the movement comes into play. Maybe you just need some like torso twists and deep inhales and exhales, and that will literally energize the cellular system with oxygen and wake your body up. And I started doing this whole morning routine back in 2016 when I started writing the book, The Power of One Positive Thought. And I've been doing it almost every single day since then. Of course, there's some days that I've missed, but it's literally been the biggest game changer in my life. When I wake up with intention and purpose, my day has more intention and purpose in it. When I make intention and purpose a habit, my life becomes intentional and purpose-filled.
Absolutely. And I love one of the things that you said, visualization. So this goes back to the early 50s. In the 1950s, there was this guy called Roger Bannister. Have you heard that story?
Yes.
Roger Bannister, at that time, all scientists around the world proved that you cannot run 1 mile in under 4 minutes. It's impossible. They did studies over it. No one ever did it before. And then comes Roger Bannister. He ran and ran and ran, 3 minutes, a little bit under 4 minutes. He did it, shocked the world. Everyone was like, wow, how did you do that? You know, the scientists, all of that. No one even believed that it was possible. And he said he did one thing. Every single day, he would visualize that race in his head over and over, winning. And that time would be less than 4 minutes. Boom, he did it. A few months after that, 5,000 people did it. A couple of years later, 5 years later, 50,000, 100,000 people started doing it with a simple act of visualization. And you can, so I do this even with my own clients. All of my clients, before going into the interview, I do a meditation with them. Tell them, close your eyes and visualize yourself already in that new job. The first day in the new job, going in, meeting your coworkers, and then over and over and over. And I can tell you stories and stories of that, how it happens, exactly how they built it in their mind. It's unbelievable.
Yes, that's really the law of attraction. Working at its finest is when you start to visualize and put your emotion and your energy towards something, that's when you're going to start to attract the likeness back to you. The more that you start to do it. Now, most people who are unfamiliar with visualization, it feels weird at first, right? Like you feel like you're not doing it right. And a lot of people will give up in their first 3 to 5 sessions of visualization, like, oh, it's not working. But it takes repetition. Like, how many times did you have to get on the bike to learn how to ride a bike, or tie your shoe, or whatever else that you've learned to do in your life? You probably didn't get it the first try. And of all of the things that you've learned in your life, there's so many things that you've had to try hundreds of times probably to finally be able to do it right, or do it good enough to just be out in the normal world. And it's just amazing. And sometimes I also add in like sensory experience. So taste, sight, smell, sound, touch. If I can, to just enhance the experience that much more. And it does the same thing. It triggers that same part of our brain and our subconscious mind where the memory kind of gets locked in with that sensory experience, or we can anchor it in with touch. So one thing that I'll do is like touch my knuckles, and that will lock in that, or anchor in that experience into your memory. And so now when you're out in the world and you want to kind of feel empowered again, you can do that anchoring movement, whether it's like tapping your knuckle, rubbing your knuckle, earlobes is a good one. And that can kind of trigger that sensory experience within your body to get back into that visualization empowerment process. And it's really, really cool how powerful it is.
Exactly. I love what you said. So the biggest thing is emotion. Emotion is the most important thing. When you're visualizing, you have to feel it, like feel it, really feel it. Not just think about it. Emotion is actually more important than the visualization, because you can attract things as you speak them out because you're feeling them, because the emotion raises our energy. And again, scientists also did a lot of studies about every human being has an aura. Yeah. We have an energy that surrounds us. And then they hooked up the Mayo Clinic, I believe, they hooked up these people like and their brain, and they started telling them, think about this, think about that. And the second they thought about certain things, boom, the frequency like skyrocketed. So our thoughts have a lot of energy that goes out into the world. Because think about it, sometimes you think about one of your friends, boom, they call you. Isn't that spooky? It's crazy. So it's not like hippie jibby or just like a spiritual thing. It is real. It is spiritual, but it's also scientifically proven that our thoughts have an energy. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can work both ways. You know, you think good things, you get good things. You think bad things, they will chase you like it's nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, that reminds me of, there was a research study done in the 80s in Harlem, and it was in a high crime neighborhood. And I mean, there were people being murdered daily. There was drug use all over, theft, crime, you name it. Like literally everything was happening in this neighborhood. And an emotional energy scientist or psychologist comes into this neighborhood and runs an experiment where for, I believe it was 3 months, she basically held a small group, I think it was of 19 people, that were all meditating and putting out positive gratitudes out just into the community, kind of like locking in the community with love, safety, positive vibes. So the instruction was to only think of positive things, only think of the things that we want, right? Most of the times we think of what we don't want, therefore we're manifesting more of it because that's where our attention is going, towards that negative. But when we shift to the positive, love, higher vibrating energies, in this study, she had these people, you know, sending that high vibe energy out into the community. And within a matter of weeks, the crime rate went down, I think 30%, significantly decreased in just a matter of weeks.
That's amazing.
And it was nothing more than people coming together with the intention of just emanating love, high vibe energy out into the community. No one in the community actually knew what was going on, but it actually lowered the crime rate significantly in a matter of weeks.
And then you heard of Opo Ono. You probably heard about that one, right?
Yeah.
He was a monk or a shaman, I believe. And he also did something very similar in a very, very intense prison. Yeah. And he wanted people to get out of that prison. So he would go there, meet them, all of them, and then every single night he would sit down and pray and send, you know, these thoughts for every person. Months later, people started to noticing, like, you know, the good behavior in the prison went up to the roof, and people were like, what happened? And then they went to talk to the monk. It's like, what did you do? You only came here once, and then all of these people, good behavior, now people are making friends, the crime is down. He's like, I just sat down and I prayed and meditated for each person. And the phrase is, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, something like that. But he basically did the same thing of sending these loving, beautiful thoughts to each person, and they felt that. He wasn't even there. It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
It's beautiful. But that is the power of why starting your day with intention and intending for a specific purpose or an outcome in your day to happen. That's why having that solid morning routine is just so important. And part of the inspiration, you know, from my book and why I got started with my book, but then also the journey, I think kind of what led you to writing your book and how many lives you're actually changing through the stories that you're telling in your book and the principles of guidance that you're giving people through your words.
So, you're talking about the mindset aspect in the book, or in general, the stories? Which one?
in general, like there's a mindset aspect that comes in, but then the stories that you're telling through what you're writing also kind of intertwines why the mindset is so important.
Okay, perfect. I love that. So mindset is the most important thing, because the job search, just like anything else, there's a lot of ups and downs. You get rejection, you get failure, you get ghosting, and then people are not prepared for that, because they start looking for jobs, they start applying, rejection, failed interviews, no's, doors, doors close in their face. So something that I emphasize is how to deal with that. How do you deal with the downs? How do you deal with the failure? How do you deal with the rejection? That's the most important thing, because when you understand that all of it is a part of the journey, it's going to get 10 times easier, like literally 10 times. So that's the first part. And the second part is, how do you build that confidence within your own self? Everyone thinks that it's all about my resume, this little sheet of paper that has my experience. It really doesn't matter. Because, I actually read this phrase a long time ago. It says, companies invest in people and not in resumes. So the second part of the mindset is, I teach my clients how to become the best version of yourself, how to go into that interview and just speak from the heart, nothing scripted, nothing bulleted, make it conversational, believe in the words that you're saying, and everything explodes and starts to change. And I would say the third part of that is getting rid of negative beliefs, old stories of why you can't do something. So in my clients have these stories, and we all do. Every single person has a story of why you can't do something, because you want to shield yourself from pain. It's a normal human thing that we all do. So first, I teach them, okay, how do you get rid of these old stories? If it's I'm too old, I'm too young, I have too much experience, I don't have enough experience, there's no jobs in my cities. We get rid of all of these stories, and then they go in wow. Because recruiters, hiring managers, the second you talk to them on the phone, they will know that, this person is confident, they believe in what they want, and then we want them. That's what's going to draw them. It's that your belief in your own self and your abilities.
That energy that you're bringing, that's what they're feeling.
Yep, exactly.
You mentioned earlier that there's 3 parts to what the book talks about, and that's the branding, the networking, and the interview prep. And as you were explaining those 3 parts, I was seeing how cohesive those 3 parts were. And then what you've just mentioned, the dealing with rejection, building confidence, and getting over those negative beliefs, all of that works so in alignment with just everything we're doing in life, right? So starting there with the branding, you were saying understand what languaging they're using, what values and mission is important to them. And in life, that's where you should implant yourself, where your values are matched, right? You don't want to work for a company where your values are completely misaligned with their values. Just like you don't want to be in a relationship or in an environment, because that's going to be totally draining when you find yourself in those situations. The same thing there with networking is creating meaningful relationships and making sure that those meaningful relationships are also in alignment with what you find important, those values.
Yes.
And then with the interview prepping for life, right? Doing the visualization, having that morning routine, showing up every single day for yourself, knowing that you have a purpose and there's an intention behind every action, every thought, every feeling. And if there's things there that you don't want, how are we dealing with them? Instead of numbing or suppressing or distracting our way out of those things, how are we dealing with them so we can move forward more healed or aligned with what we're actually calling in? And I just find it beautiful that although your industry is so different from mine, how cohesive all of the foundational principles really are. But it's not surprising either. At the same time, it is, because you just intrigued me how much value you've provided in so many spaces. And it's really cool to watch you do what you do and change so many lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then again, you are doing the exact same, right now. You have a podcast. You are, working day and night. You're pushing out your message. You're putting all of this content for free because you care. How many people do that? Zero to none, slim to none, maybe in the negatives. Not many people do what you do. So that's where, the world needs more Kaels. The world needs more people who come from a loving place, who understand what the dark side was, how to get out of the dark side, how to change your life, how to move to a better place, how to find your purpose and your mission. And that's what you do. And just by your presence alone, you do that. You have all the credentials, the background, the certifications, many, many years of experience. That's beautiful. But what's special about you is yourself, your energy, your smile, your voice, the things, the thoughts that you give people, how you shift them. It's extremely powerful. And I wanted to piggyback off of the third part, which we talked about the daily habits, right? So, okay, you start with the daily habits, but two other things. Anything you want to do, I truly believe in my soul, find someone who did it successfully before you and learn from them. Google, oh my God, please. People do not use enough of Google. There are so many resources. It's all for free. YouTube videos, courses that you can take, books you can buy from people who put 50 years of experience. You buy it for $20. It's like 2 Starbucks drinks and 1 sandwich. The resources are almost unlimited out there. So if you want to do anything that you want to do, okay, find a new job, start a business, write a book, start a podcast, be on a podcast, be on the news, Google, go to Google, just Google that thing and start to learn. Don't waste time trying to figuring it out yourself because, why reinvent the wheel since someone did it successfully before you? Learn from them, implement your own style. You remember we said R&D, rip off and duplicate? Take it from them and then use your own style. You don't have to do exactly what they do. And then the second part, other than getting, help, which can be a coach, a mentor, a group, a Facebook group, a meetup group, you name it. The second part is to surround yourself with the right people. Yes. And I'm talking about friends, okay? You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, everything. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong room. Get people who will love you for exactly who you are, who will challenge you and call you out for your BS. That's huge, yes. Because when they love you, they call you out like, hey, you can do much, you can do better. And I love what Will Smith said in his book and in one of his videos. He's like, if the people around you do not light that fire that's inside you, it's not the right type of people. So you go and find, someone else to hang around with, even if it means losing your best friend that you've been 15, 20 years. Doesn't matter. I understand it's hard, much easier said than done. But you will do yourself a favor by getting rid of the people that are not serving you. As harsh, as crazy as that sounds, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Everything that you said, I was like, yes, I now have a memory, an experience, a relationship, whatever. Everything that you said was just so much facts and so true. Couldn't be more correct. And yeah, that's what resonated most is don't surround yourself with yes people. Make sure that you're choosing people to invite into your life that are going to challenge your success. And not in a way where they're constantly putting you down. Are you sure you want to be doing this? Is that right for you? No, that's not what I mean by challenge your success. What I mean by that is holding you accountable. If they hear you say something, they're going to ask you about, hey, what progress have you made? And they're going to keep checking in once a week or once a month to see what progress you've made. If they have the availability in their emotional, energetic, or even schedule in their space, how can they support you? Right. And that's been probably the biggest part of my overall expansion is the people. And again, that's the reason why I wanted to start the series on this podcast, Conversations with Influential People. It's because it's not what you know, it's who you know. You can know all the things in the world, but if no one supports you, if no one is encouraging you, if no one really fucks with you, right? How far are you really going to get? When you're nurturing those relationships, when you're surrounding yourself around people who get it, who get you and want to see you succeed and are supporting that success journey, you're destined to win. You're probably going to mess up along the way, but you're destined to win.
1,000%. And I mean, I just actually thought of this story. So the whole world knows who Tony Robbins is. Tony Robbins, the biggest life and business coach worldwide.
Yeah.
So he was talking about one of the I never forget the stories. I went to one of his seminars, which was awesome. We walked on fire. It was one of the best experiences in my life. I talk about it in my first book. So he was saying he was starting to become successful, and then he bought this like mansion in Del Mar. It's a big mansion. And it was actually like a castle. It was an old castle in Del Mar, which is crazy. Overview, like look, you can see the ocean. It was wow. So he thought like, what? Yeah, you know what? I made it. And then he said one of his friends called him, one of his billionaire friends, and he invited him over to his island, to a new island that he bought. So Tony Robbins, he's like, I felt my castle was a studio. You see, like when he sat there, it's like, this guy has an island. I have a castle. How can I get my own island? So that guy, his friend, even indirectly challenged him to take it to the next level. How can he, it's not just, I'm not talking about the money or any of that, but just a level of growth. So he challenged him to think bigger. How can you take it to the next level? So that's what we were talking about. The people around you should challenge you to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. What did they say? It's like, find something that keeps you in shape, that keeps you active, that keeps you fulfilled, there's like 5 things there. And it's like, if you find people, even if it's one person that fits each of those categories, like one person that you go hiking with or you hit the gym with, one person that you can talk money about with, and they've got their finances nailed down. So if you need advice or just guidance in what to do with your money, how to be smarter with your money, then that person is that person that you're spending more time with and having those powerful conversations with. If you've got somebody that gets you into that spontaneous, maybe childlike, playful mode, then that person is also adding value into your life. And making time to nurture these relationships and being intentional about how you nurture the relationships is really important. And, finding those hobbies and those activities, great, but also finding those people that kind of match those values, that those things that are really important to your life are equally just as important.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today on the Boss That's Rising podcast. I know this is not going to be the last time that you're here because there's so much value that you can continue to provide.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again, for everything that you do, for who you are. I truly appreciate it. I mean, I always enjoy our conversationals, just like you were talking about, adding value. You have amazing ideas. You think big. And I would love to be here anytime. You just let me know. And I appreciate everyone who was listening. And I hope that today you at least took away one main thing. And if you did, remember to write it down so you won't forget it.
Absolutely. And where can they find Fulfilled, your book?
So if you go to fulfilled-book.com, you can find the book right there. And any other information, if you just Google my name, Wasim, or Wasim The Dream, just Google Wasim The Dream, simple as that, you'll find everything on Google, my website, LinkedIn, everything that you need.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I will add all of this information in the show notes of today's episode, but is there any, parting words that you want to leave with our audience today?
Parting words, 1,000%. Remember to do these three main things. Number 1, having a daily routine. Block out 30 minutes in the morning, do meditation, journaling, and exercise. Number 2, anything that you want to do, anything that you're thinking about, get help. And Google is your best friend. Number 3, surround yourself with the right people. Starting today, not tomorrow, as difficult as that is, but do it for yourself, because that's what's going to benefit you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. If you haven't reached out to Wasim or I, we are always open. We are here to support you. So maybe we're the first 2 people that you reach out to be that team of support. We're always here.
Absolutely.
All right, Wasim, thanks so much. And until next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.